the Little Johnny Chronicles number 13, the Troll Series 8.0. As always, if you're watching this and this doesn't support your top priorities or goals in your life and you have something better to do, execute. Get off the internet, stop scrolling, chase your dreams, and make it happen. Today we're going to discuss parents, single parents, and foster parents. In this life, right, I think we all have an experience with our parents, and whether or not it's a positive or negative one is based on a lot of different factors. You don't get to choose your parents, and conversely, you don't get to choose the children that are delivered to you through the universe or God, or if you're agnostic or whatever, if you're a atheist, if it's just science to you, those things are important. So, and it does have I guess, something to do with how we parent our children, right? Is it faith-based? A lot of parents, of course, pick a religion, want to inculcate those belief systems into their kids as they develop and they grow up, with the interest that, hopefully, with the interest that their kids grow up with a moral compass, a better understanding of right and wrong, a desire to live, a support system or technique to get them through hard times, right? Faith is huge for some people, and it helps them to get through hard times. I used to not be an advocate for the hope technique, meaning hoping that things go right. I used to be kind of a planner. Show me, I got to make it happen. I'm not gonna. Hope is not a course of action. It's not a plan. But you know, as I've gotten older and run into problems, sometimes there was no solution. The only thing I could do was hope. Hope that the event would pass quickly. Hope that I would gain strength and gain better mental clarity through my issue. Things like that. So hope is huge, and for parents that raise their kids in an environment of spirituality, religion, I think it goes a long way. I think it's definitely a requirement for this life. Very few of us can pull it off without thinking that we don't need somebody else. You know, the atheist, in my opinion, is a very talented person. I have nothing against them. I think in the grand scheme of things on this planet, the atheist is part of the clergy. They're the open mind thinker, the one that are willing to resist and risk their soul, if they subscribe to religion, to bring in the different and the new idea, to go against the grain. So we need people like that. But I'm speaking this way because parenting is a really complicated subject. Whether or not you become a good parent is a roll of the dice. I know parents who are excellent, who love their children, but their children still have problems. They end up in prison. They join gangs. My childhood best friend, had two parents. And, you know, I hope it's okay that I say this, but, you know, he would probably be okay, I assume. You know, he ended up in prison for a little while. Different things. You know, he has 10 kids, probably about 8 different baby mama, stuff like that. But he had two parents. He had two loving parents. You know, his parents were great. I just don't know what causes kids to think what they do, even in the presence of quality parenting. And the inverse is the same, although the parent does hold much more responsibility for the kids. If they have good kids, if they damage them. We can damage our kids in so many different ways that we didn't know about. But I think that's not new knowledge. The nuclear family has not necessarily been dismantled, but it's no longer a tradition. It's no longer a value embraced by the populace at large. It's kind of accepted that single parenting is okay, and of course it is. But does that provide the best opportunity for success for the child? I think we're learning that it doesn't. There are exceptions to every rule. That as we continue to discuss this, I'd like to be really sensitive to the parents. 'Give me 1 second. I'd like to be really sensitive to the parents, whether they're single or they're foster parents or just regular parents, who are struggling to and striving to raise quality people, quality adults, right? Little children, because there's no choice about the matter. They're going to grow up, they're going to be adults, and they're going to enter society. And I think the vast majority of parents want to do the best job possible. The issue we run into is our skill set, the level of intelligence that God has endowed us with, the level of intelligence that our education system has given us. So it's very much regional dependent, culturally dependent, spiritually dependent. So there's so many different factors that go into making a successful or creating or raising a successful child, and a healthy one at that. Mentally healthy, physically healthy, all the above, right? Because in my opinion, our financial status does determine very much what type of quality we're able to provide for the child in terms of education, nutrition, all those type of external experiences like sports, summer camp, things like that. Sometimes that simply is out of the question, because the budget doesn't allow it. So this is not to chastise any parent who's making an effort on any level. Life is hard, and parenting is one of those challenges that I don't want to say plagues us all. It sounds negative, but I also don't want to take it too light. It is a very serious concern, I think, for all of us, that we provide quality parenting for our children. But to what degree and what that means is different for all of us. And so this is the trolling series. I want to say I'm passing no judgment, but obviously that's exactly what I'm doing here. But I would like to outline the behavior that generally does not produce, or just obviously is not going to produce a healthy child, and present a healthy young adult into society. That includes me. I have 3 children, and as I raised them, of course, I modified my behavior. I think I've mentioned, when my last child was born, it was a girl. I think I was 23 years old, and I was kind of a piece of shit. There's no other way to say it. I lacked a moral compass. I lacked ethics. I had a lot of work to do on myself. And so when she was born, I asked myself, am I the type of man that I want my daughter to marry? And the question obviously was no. And so that kind of became the genesis, the spark that lighted the fire for self-improvement, to become a better man, so I could be a better example for my daughter, so that hopefully, because I think that's what the science, or the knowledge bears out, the study bears out, is that the information says your daughter's likely to marry somebody like their father. And I assume just because that's the example, right? This guy is good enough. It was good enough for my mom. This other guy would be good enough for me. Maybe it's something like that. But I knew I had to set a way better example for my child, to try to be a model man, a man in every sense of the word, so that maybe she knew what to look for, the quality to look for in her partner, being responsible, paying the bills, always being there in the hard times and the easy times, being supportive, behaving, treating their mom properly, and being a moral and upstanding quality partner, all the above. I had a lot of shortcomings, and as a parent, the hope would be that you notice those things up front and you try to fix them rather quickly. I had my first child at 16. So obviously there were a lot of shortcomings. Kids raising kids is not a good situation for the baby, in any sense of the word. I don't care how many resources you have. It's very hard to climb out of that hole, right? You put yourself at a deficit when you have a kid so young. We were fortunate. However, as I look at my oldest child and my middle child, I can kind of see some of the things that I did wrong there. For example, once my last one was born, I just knew I was never going to want to use corporal punishment on her, where before it was just what we did. Being raised with a Mexican background, corporal punishment is not necessarily out of bounds for raising children. I guess it depends on your household, but typically, I'm speaking in generalities here. Uh, Corporal punishment, mean like spankings, is not out of bounds. And so that's how we started, yelling and authoritarianism, and taking the authoritative stance on our kid was a call of the day, because that's what we knew. That's what we thought was best for our child. Give them proper direction and guidance, and ensure that they knew there were consequences for deviating from the norm. But that was just pure ignorance. Raising a child requires a lot of delicacy. It requires a lot of nuance and tenderness. It does require some rigidity. You have to teach discipline, but that discipline has to come. The example of discipline has to come from the parent first. I think that's just the way it works. And so as I start talking shit about shitty parents, about shitty single parents, and about foster parents, it's not to shit on any particular person. I think as parents, there is no perfect parent. And for those of you who do damage to your kids, I think the technique I use with them is, even to this day, the window is always open for them to come to me with any type of grievance, regardless of the presentation that they use. I used to get upset when they used to have a problem and they needed to address it with me. Dad, you did this wrong when you were a kid, and this is when I was a kid, and this is how I feel about it. And now that they're grown up, I used to resist them sometimes when they would yell at me or something like that. But I think when it comes to like trauma or perceived trauma, I think I'm strong enough just to accept it the way that they bring it, regardless of whether or not they're attacking me or whatever. I give them license to do that, because they're not going to hurt my feelings. They probably hurt my feelings, but I'm going to let them. If it's in the effort to improve their mental health, if they actually have a legitimate grievance, which, unfortunately for me, they do sometimes. Because like I said, I started having a family really, really young, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I made some horrendous decisions, and I've tried my best to help them heal. I hope that we're there. You'd have to ask them. I would have to ask them to agree that that's the case. But we do have better relationships now, because we have the open dialogue about, my shortcomings as a parent, and I'm willing to own them. And sometimes, like, I don't understand where they're coming from, but I just own it anyway, because if it helps them to feel better and become a better adult and help them move on with their lives, why not just do that? I can absorb that on their behalf. Not a big deal. So what I implore you to do is, get educated about being a parent. Make sure when you decide to be a parent, that you're ready, that you understand that there's a lot of responsibility involved, and that you're committed to that child. You're committed to your partner that you had with that child, because as we're going to discuss, it's kind of imperative to the success of the child that you maintain a stable household. Stability is a key. Stability is going to help them feel safe. That's one of the safety is one of the components of a healthy development. So if you don't have that, if safety is absent, fucking forget it. You're setting up your child for failure. And maybe early on in my parenting endeavor, I use fear to control and manipulate the behavior of my kid, and in turn, was withholding a vital component of their development and their safety. I could talk about my childhood, but that's a long story. Obviously, hopefully, if you're watching this, you can kind of see a healthy individual on the other side of the screen. But it didn't come without a lot of work. And I would encourage you to save your child from having to do a bunch of reparenting as an adult, because it's not easy. Sometimes it's just not possible. Because I was in the military, I had a lot of resources. I had a lot of access to mental health. As a veteran, I have access to the VA. As a retiree, I have access to TRICARE. And when I'm employed, I also have access to my employer's medical plan. So I have many, many resources. But that's not typically the case for people. And so you want to do your best as a parent, admit to your mistakes, make the modifications to your behavior as you learn. And then, when your children grow up, if they still have issues, you want to help them continue to develop. Just because my children are grown doesn't mean that I'm going to stop parenting them. Now, I tend to think that I can be their friend. When they were kids, I had the rules like I'm not your friend, and even in adulthood, when they were early on in their adulthood, I was like, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. I'm here to give you direction, and the emotional friend to friend connection involvement is for others, not you and I. This is a special relationship. But as they grow up, you find that they have their own mind, they have their own way of thinking, they have their own, they start to develop their own life philosophy. And just because it doesn't agree with yours doesn't mean that you should change it at that point. They're grown-ups, they can make their own decisions. And in that vein, they can start to teach us stuff because their perspective is very informative to you, because they're now adults, right? You're having an adult to adult conversation. And if you raise them right, and they start to become very, very competent, and they will if you do, they bring these different ideas, and so you want to form a different type of relationship with them. So there's that comfort level and communication, but also it starts to help to break down that wall of, did I do something wrong to you, son or daughter? If you have a grievance, let's address it. I want you to be healthy, and you'll find sometime that there's something boiling under the surface. But let's fix it. Let's address it. We could be friends. I have beers with my son. When I visit him, we don't live in the same state, but we sit down and talk, make sure everything's good to go. We have great times, and that's the genesis for the quality relationships that we have now, is addressing any issues that we have. So with all that said, again, I'm not speaking here to insult anybody. I'm speaking just in generalities, because I do see and have seen parents just obliterate their children in public. You see family members act up. And so I'm going to address some of the trolling behavior that we exhibit as parents. And of course, we'll talk about some of the numbers. It's probably important, but it's to just give you a picture of the challenges we face as parents, and also for the child, the challenges that the child faces, and the deficits that they're put in, depending on what kind of home they live in and what kind of parents they have. Let's get to it. So, if we want to break the overall down of how many kids live in a two-parent household, the two married parents who actually had them, in 1968, it was 87%, almost 88% of kids live with the parents that had them, the two parents that got married. In 2005, it was 67%. And in 2023, it was 71% of kids lived in the same house that had them and had two parents, right? By 15, though, only 53% of kids live with the two original parents who were married, right? So at this point, they have a single mom or a single dad or a stepmom or a stepdad or all the above, right? Things happen. You also had a prevalence in the increase of single motherhood or single parenting, right? Because, there's not just single mom, there's single dads too. In 1968, only 11% of kids lived in single parent homes. In 2020, that number was 21%. For fathers in 1968, only 1% of children lived in single parent homes. In 2020, it was closer to 5%. It was 4.5, but that's closer to 5%. So as you can see, there's a slow degradation of the typical family unit, and an increase in the number of kids growing up in single family homes. And if you look at those numbers, growing up in a single family home, and I'm not talking shit about women, but specifically living with moms, their outcomes are kind of more on the negative scale, and take that with a grain of salt. Again, lots of quality single moms and dads, but those are the facts. And then let's break down the number of kids who live in two-parent households in general by race, right? For Asians, and this is as of 2022, is 81%. A white household is 70%. Hispanics, 55%. Multiracial, 51%. And black is 33%. So that we can see it's cultural, right? Our parenting skills, our culture informed our children very much how they should behave as grown-ups. As we talked shit about the trolls earlier, one of the primary ways that children learn is simply by imitation. All they're going to do is imitate what the parents are doing. And if that's one of our primary modes of learning, you can only imagine the outcomes if you live in a household that has domestic violence or only has a single parent home where, the dynamic is very different than having two parents. And then even, a step further, you could have two parents, but if one of those is a step parent, your kids are more susceptible to child abuse, child neglect, sexual abuse, all the above. All those numbers increase. The opportunity for a negative experience for a child goes up once the two married individuals who birthed that child are separated. It's just a fact. That's how it works. I'm not saying that they're doomed to prison, but it definitely does start to stack the odds up against them. So you can imagine a child who lives with a single mom, who's already 2 years old, who has a stepdad now, or men coming in and out of their lives that, again, those children's lives get exponentially more challenging because simply the family dynamic doesn't support a better quality upbringing. That's it. It's not more complicated. Moving on. So you have some of the numbers now. That's what we're going to talk about. Quality parents, I love you guys. Keep up the good work, but let's talk some shit. All right. So parents, you have the authoritarian. That troll, the authoritarian, has all the rules, knows right from wrong, can't be wrong, and he or she can never deviate from their line of thinking. And the child suffers a lot, right? Because that's the parent who's going to yell and scream and use corporal punishment as a motivator. I think we're learning that hitting our kids really is not healthy. I think that's a last resort. But frequently, I think people use it either the first resort or act out in frustration. And that's a shortcoming on the parent. So if that's the case, obviously you have to some work to do there. You have the cool mom and dad. All right, that fucking troll thinks that they should allow their kid to do whatever the fuck they want. They can smoke weed around the house. They can drink around the house. But in reality, we understand that substance abuse is detrimental to our kids. Matter of fact, if our kids live in single family homes or broken homes, the way it's referred to sometimes, being a cool parent is not good, because those kids, just in general, because they live in a single family home, are more susceptible to alcohol abuse, any type of substance abuse. So, being a cool parent is good. You could be a cool parent and you could be a quality parent too. I mean, those things are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. But being the cool mom or dad and allowing the kids to have sex in the rooms and stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't mention it if I didn't fucking know some parents are like that. It's not good, right? You don't want, again, having your kids having kids. I've been there, done that. It's not a good thing. The next type of troll parent, that's the absent parent. That's the one that's never there. They're more interested in their social life, continue to live out their college or high school dreams. Same social life with none of the responsibilities that are required for a kid, right? The kid comes home after school. I think it's imperative that the parent get there as soon as they can. I understand we're all working class typically in this country. So, if you don't have that extended family where you have the grandparents that come over, the kids go over to the aunts or uncle's house before the parent goes home. If the kids are young, right? Once they get older, maybe it's okay. But you don't want to be the absent parent. You want to be there when they need something, help them get their homework done, give them some guidance, help them value their education, or work through any issues they might have encountered at school. Bullying is a big thing. And I hate it for kids, and unfortunately, it's just a fact of life. And we have to teach our kids how to defend themselves, how to manage those bully situations. Um, yeah, maybe if you have to get the school involved, you have to do that. You have to advocate for your child. But we also have to teach our fucking kids how to be strong. I think we've forgotten that. And unfortunately, not all our kids are born jocks. Some of them are the little wimpy kid. We have to advocate for them. We have to teach them how to defend themselves and what they need to do in those situations. And yeah, it's tough. So the absent parent, you have the screaming parent, or I'm sorry, you have the abandonment parent, the fucking parent who just lets the fucking kid do whatever they want. They're never home. The parent is never home. If they're not at work, they're with their friends. They never know what the kid is doing, or they're quick to drop the baby off with whoever. That's a dangerous situation. So, don't be an absent parent. Like, you got to be there for your kids. Like, there's no two ways about it. I think for mammals, our children have one of the longest weaning periods of any mammal. 18 fucking years, right? At least the way we carve up adulthood in the United States. But also the gestation period, right? We have one of the longest gestation periods of all mammals, right? It takes 9 months for a human being to develop inside of mom's body, and then even longer to train them and teach them how life works and protect them. They're very helpless up until they're who knows how years old, 9, 10, 11. I'm not sure what the proper age is child dependent, but they're really dependent on us really up until their adolescence, through about puberty. It sounds about right. But even beyond that, there's lots of life lessons that need to be learned. And if you have a guide, right, there are no shortcuts in life. But in my opinion, the closest thing to a shortcut is a mentor, a guide, a parent. So if you lose that tool, if the information doesn't avail itself to the child, it's detrimental. You have the screamer parent. They just scream about everything. Everything is about yelling, etc. You know what? They're not 100% a troll. I've seen people pull that off. It's their personality. They yell at everything, and they also yell at the kids. And so it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but frequently it is. There's a time and a place for it. But if that's your permanent, volume level, yelling at your kid, you probably want to check that. Next, what other type of regular parents that we have where we're, toxic to our children? The helicopter parent. We're always hovering over them. We're always protecting them. We're always pushing them to this, to do that, and we're always there. What that does is it stifles their individuality. It stifles their ability to be independent. And so it's no wonder that these kids start to need safe spaces, because when the parent's not there, there's no one there to rescue them. And they're always counting on the hero. And of course, we need to teach our kids to be their own hero. They have to rescue themselves in certain situations. Of course, it's all age dependent, scenario dependent, but don't be a fucking troll. Don't cripple your children emotionally. Don't cripple your children socially by always having to be there like a fucking vampire when there's a fucking problem. Next is the athlete. You have parents who want to live vicariously through their children. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. You definitely want to immerse your children in health, and sports is a good way to do it. It's a good way to keep them out of trouble. Sports facilitates all kinds of things for your kids. Social interaction, competition, fair competition, what competition really means, all the above. Like you can start to extract all kinds of quality traits of character that a child would develop through sports. But you have that parent who that's the only thing that the kid's gonna do, and they steer them to soccer or football, and that becomes the only focus in their life. Secondary to grades, secondary to social interaction, secondary to all that stuff. And what happens is you end up crippling the kid, especially if they get hurt. And now they have a debilitating injury that prevents them from doing any type of athletics at the more competitive levels like college, right, which will pay for your school. And now you can't get the scholarship. And even if you do get the scholarship, because we didn't focus on grades, we can't go to the school we want to. So athletics are a great facilitator to teach our kids a bunch of valuable lessons, but it can't be the only avenue of approach. when it comes to teaching your kids how to live their life. I think it's less than 1% of all high school, all high school players make it to the NFL. And I think of all high school players, I think it's the number is minuscule. I don't know if it's 18%. I'm pretty sure below 20% make it to the NCAA Division I. So, or any college football system. I don't remember what the number is, but it's abysmal as well. So, you don't want to set your kid up for success and put all his or her eggs in one basket. You definitely want to focus on education. What's our fallback plan if we get hurt? You want to teach them to think strategically, not just tactically. So we'll move on. And then you have the bulldozer parent. The bulldozer parent probably usually has a lot of resources, money, and they can buy their kid into anything, whether or not the kid earned it, right? It's not merit-based. It's simply because they have the family name or because the parent knows a certain person in a system, right? They pay for them. I forget the name of the actress, but you had the USC scandal where the mom paid I think it was the rowing coach, the rowing competition coach, to put their kid on the roster and give them a scholarship so they could attend USC. Otherwise the kid wasn't gonna make it. And that's cheating. Plain and simple is cheating. I kind of understand why a parent would do that. We want the best for our kids, but we should have a desire to raise our kids in reality, with the real sense of how life works. Because if the parent passes away, and I hope not, right? That's not what I'm advocating here. But if the parent passes away, the scenario is, now what does the kid do? Who is there to buy their way? Who is there to show them what contacts to make, how that system works? Not to say that they should live that way, but you put your kid, you're setting up your kid for failure, and that's wrong. So the bulldozer parent, serves as a particularly toxic type of parent. They just, they hurt their kid in so many ways that they don't understand. It's kind of like the helicopter parent on steroids. Next, and then you have the parents, and there's a bunch of different trolls in here. But obviously, like the list went on really quick because there are so many things we can do wrong as parents. But you have the one that don't want kids. I've heard parents talk about not wanting their kids that just had their kids by accident. I'm telling you, if you don't want kids, wear protection or pull out, do some shit. Because the worst thing you can have is a parent who has no fucking interest in raising the child after they have them. I've heard parents say they didn't want kids, but they're still putting their best foot forward, providing a loving atmosphere, a nurturing atmosphere for their child, regardless of how they feel about, wanting to be a parent. But I think more often than not, these parents tend to abandon their children, right? And we see what happens when we abandon kids. Kids without guidance, kids without structure, kids without any type of fucking hope. Those are the ones that end up in prison. Those are the ones that we see now on our streets, addicted to drugs and all this other stuff, because they simply don't have the mental fortitude injected into them that a parent would show them. Hey, you have to be strong. You're gonna have problems in life. You're gonna have setbacks. You have to overcome. That you start to preach all those things, especially in faith-based houses. You have, hey, Jesus is always gonna come to your rescue. Ask him for help. Allah is there. Whatever your God is. So those kids tend to be more healthy. It's just the way it works. I don't know why. That's a different discussion. But they're the parents that don't want their kids. They don't get any of that. They don't get a taste of ice cream sometimes, and that's not fair. If you bring them into this life, I just assume you're obligated to take care of them. That's the way it works. Try your best. All right, we're gonna move on from regular parents. Again, if you're a good parent or if you have shortcomings, if you fall into that troll list, just fix it. There's no shame in admitting to your shortcomings. Matter of fact, to the contrary, if you're unwilling to admit to your shortcomings, it doesn't allow you to improve them, and your child will continue to suffer. Don't hurt your kids. Like I said, I'm not innocent in any of this stuff. I have a lot of horror stories where I've gone wrong and I've gone off the rails as a parent, and in the long run I hurt my kids. But I'm advising you, don't do that. You could do the hard work up front and save your kids from all that trauma or emotional turmoil or whatever happens to them, by trying harder, shoring up your shortcomings. All right, we're gonna move on to the single parent troll. I was raised in a single parent household. My mom raised us, and she tried her best. Were there things missing there in my life? Yeah, I won't lie about that. It's just readily apparent that when I grew up, like I started this little show today, I didn't have a moral compass. I just saw a bunch of different things that kind of taught me to the contrary. It's not that I was missing it, is that the compass was really misaligned with all kinds of stuff. My moral values, the way I treated people in general, not just women, but just people in general, the way I saw life and my role in it. I thought the world owed me everything. I don't know why it came out like that, but that was a manifestation. And it wasn't good for me. And it took me a long time to get my bearings straight, to get back control of my life and my mind and my body and all the things that were required to make me a better person, so I could be a good partner for my partner at the time and be a good parent for all my children. So, the single parent has a huge challenge, and I don't envy that position at all. However, you can be absolutely successful as a single parent. Being in the military, you see it a lot. You have, as a leader, you have soldiers that come from all walks of life, all the different scenarios. You're gonna see single parents, gay parents, like it doesn't fucking matter. You're gonna see the full spectrum. But the single parents, you could see where they struggled, especially with childcare. Showing up to work at 6:30 in the morning every day consistently is hard already. It's harder when you're a single parent and the child is sick. They got to go to school. The school calls now, and you're out. The parent is fully engaged in the mission or whatever the heck we're doing, and who is there to pick them up, right? Often you'll see like a grandparent live with a single parent like that, and they'll be there to help, but that's not always the case. Sometimes the mom or dad is all there is, and so I can definitely see the challenges in employment for them. As hard as the single parent tries, sometimes things just get really difficult, especially when it comes to income, right? You have that single income compared to two incomes, especially in these times where inflation, the cost of housing, and the cost of food, and the cost of healthcare, the cost of absolutely every single thing is really high right now. So if you're a single parent and that means you probably have a single income. And if you meet a certain threshold income, you have a parent who's a striver. He or she's going out to get it. Now they're earning $45,000 a year. Guess what? They don't qualify for any assistance. And so literally 50% of their income is going to housing. That's pre-tax, right? Post-tax, holy shit. It's probably about 50% of their income is going just to housing. Never mind food and school activities and clothes and all the things that, add to our life expenses. They add up really quick. So I'm not talking about the single parent that tries their ass off, is working their butt off to do well. Even if they have shortcomings, they're still giving 100%, 110%. Hey, God bless you. Let's talk about the fucking trolls though. All right, single parents. What troll is there? The excuser. You see the troll, the person that makes excuses for everything. That's not a common thread for all the trolls, but as we're seeing it frequently makes an appearance. The characteristic of making excuses for everything. They use their kids for everything. Oh, I can't come to work today. Oh, my kid is sick. I got to go home early. And those things are going to happen. But when this person is always doing that, you're always leaving the team hanging. You do the same thing with your family. Hey, I got to go to work. Here's the kid. I'm dropping them off. I have an emergency shift. When in reality, it's bullshit. They just want to go out and hang out. So you have the single parent that is using their child as an excuse, as a tool to get over on the system, or to simply, benefit them socially or whatever the fuck. Don't be the excuser. Don't be a troll. I'm not saying that single parents don't need to get out. Absolutely, you need your quality time, your individual time. but it should be structured, should be scheduled, should not create chaos for the child, create chaos for the employer, create chaos for the family. You know, it just, you're turbulent. You make life turbulent for everybody when you act outside the bounds of good faith. Next, single parents. The drama king or queen. Again, this is another characteristic that frequently comes out in trolling behavior. You know, sometimes it's just fucking drama. The single parent has these kids and they're screaming, and you know, they have the boyfriend and they have multiple boyfriends, or vice versa. You have the dad that has, you know, multiple women, and all they do is create fucking chaos and drama in their child's life, in the extended family's life, their employer's life, and we fucking have to deal with it. And guess who ends up raising your kid? Probably the school system, your fucking extended family, if not law enforcement, the justice system. You definitely don't want your kid to get involved in the justice system. So the drama king or queen isn't always such a negative person or negatively impactful person, but it does inject a bunch of unnecessary bullshit into their kids' lives. So all that means is you have to inject some maturity into it. You have to start to take a step back and absorb some shit. Maybe you don't get to go out as much as you want to do, or you're not involved in society as much as you like. You know, those days are over. You have a fucking kid now. It's a different type of responsibility. That kid is tied to your hip, literally, up until they get a certain age. And again, even then, they require a lot of guidance, even if they're a teenager or a young adult, or if they're 18 or if they're 21. It definitely helps that kid live their life, or that grown child live their life in better quality fashion if they have a parent who's highly interested and not injecting a bunch of drama into their fucking lives. Fucking trolls. All right. Single parents. I don't know what I meant by this. It says the prison guard. And I think what that means is, now, okay, yes. So what that means is the parent literally locks the fucking child up in the house, or in their room, or both, in their fucking room in the house, because they don't have time to do proper parenting. They're always at work. They are trying to be responsible, but they take the other extreme. Now they're isolating the child. The child doesn't get social interaction. All the child knows how to do is lock themselves in their room and read, or do homework, or worse than that, just consume a screen, whether it's the internet or television, because there's no supervision. They're just locked in a fucking room to their own devices. It's unhealthy, mentally unhealthy for the child, for sure, physically probably too. And you know, it's detrimental to their development. Don't lock your kids up. You got to find the after school program. And again, I don't envy the single parents challenge here, but it's imperative that you try to find those solutions, that you find your tribe, a quality friends group, a quality social circle that can augment those things when you can't. And it's hard because it's hard to trust. Again, if you live with a step parent, you're 30% more likely to suffer from some sort of abuse, specifically sexual abuse, and that's not good for anybody. So single parents, you know, the prison guard, I understand the mentality, but you have to work a little bit harder. Fucking troll. Next, so false credentials. The troll that provides false credentials. So they pass themselves off as a parent, but they're not a fucking parent at all. Why? Because they're always dropping the child off with somebody else. Whether it be the grandparents, the babysitter. Sometimes they don't pick the fucking kid up from school. They drop the kid off extra early because they got to go to work. And that sucks. Again, I don't envy the single parent's position, but those are things that just are non-negotiable. You cannot abandon your child for hours on end, whether it's the beginning of the school day, at the end of the school day. You have to have a plan. The child cannot go without guidance, especially in their early development. Again, we're talking anywhere from between like 11 or 13. Somewhere around there, they can gain some independence and really operate well by themselves. But up until then, you're on the hook. And frequently you see that these parents allow somebody else to raise their kid, and they're all right with that. Oh, grandma will raise them. Oh, the school system will raise them. or worse yet, now your kid is getting in trouble and the justice system is raising them. And even then, better you than me. I don't have to do it, and I can go do whatever the fuck I want. Man, wrong answer. So if you're the false credentials troll, you're a fucking piece of shit. Get some help. Figure out a plan. You can improve your status from simply being a credentialed parent, a false credentialed parent, and get some skills and help your kids out. Don't be a fucking troll. Kids aren't too important. Next, single parents, the abandoner. And that's worse than the prison guard. So the prison guard is going to lock their child up, is going to provide them some sense of security, maybe safety even. But you could say maybe this kid is safe as long as the kid is well behaved, because, right, the house is a dangerous place. Kids alone can create a lot of havoc. But if you lock them up in the room and you give them their books, or you give them the fucking internet and the TV screen, I guess they're safe. But the abandoner is worse, because what they do is they just leave the kid to their own devices. You could run the streets, you do whatever the fuck you want from the age of 3, 4, 5. I mean, literally the kid is out there in diapers, just fucking in the front yard, walking down the block, doing whatever the fuck. Again, I wouldn't mention these things if I didn't see them. Right? These are literal fucking parents that do all this fucking bullshit. And you can argue that it doesn't exist, but if you look at our prison system, if you ask some of those people like what happened, some of them would just tell you like nobody fucking paid any attention to me, and I was left to my own devices, and this is what the fuck I ended up doing. The abandoner leaves the kid alone, or simply leaves them with others, and has no care, concern when to come back. What time is mom showing up? Hey, I might be back in the morning because I'm going to the club. I mean, same thing for a single dad. I'm not trying to pick on moms, but typically it's the single mom, because there's simply more single parents who are female than male. That's the only stipulation there. But anyway, don't be an abandoner. That's one of the most horrific types of single parents. Kids need guidance. They need their mom or dad. Even if you have grandma who is an excellent child rearing machine, it doesn't compare to having mom or dad there. It's absolutely imperative that the closest blood relative is the one raising the kid. I don't know why it works that way. I think nature has something to do with that. But do not be an abandoner. Worst type of fucking troll. Don't be a troll. All right. And so single parents, often of course, as a parent, as a grown up, a lot of us don't want to navigate this life alone. We're looking for a partner frequently, or we go out on dates. And so you have the single parent who is bringing people into the house eventually. Some single parents I've seen have great rules. They have great boundaries. No, you can't fucking come over and see my kids. No, you can't have access to my kids. And they do a great job of protecting their children. Only after we've had a relationship for X amount of months or years or whatever the fuck can you get that close. But often what you see is the step person, mom or dad, or the step boyfriend, however the fuck you want to see it, gains access to the children almost immediately. And again, these people are foreign to your child. And because of that, it creates a dilemma for your kid, but also it grants that person access to somebody who is not their blood relative, who is really vulnerable. And if I'm a bad actor, you can only imagine what would happen. That's why kids who grow up with step parents are, again, 30% more likely to suffer from some sort of abuse, whether it be physical, mental, or the worst one, sexual, right? That's damaging. That's kind of a lifelong scar. So if you're interested in seeing your kid grow up healthy, you can't give these people access to your children immediately. At least what I've seen, that's the best technique. You want to maybe introduce them months down the line. You know this person is a good person, doesn't demonstrate any deviant type of behavior. They treat you well. They're there to do whatever in good faith. They don't have a problem with children. Maybe they've met the other children if the new partner has other children. Things like that. But step parents, it's not like playing with fire. I don't want to say it like that. But it could be detrimental. A a 1 in 3 odds of getting a shitty person in your house and hurting your kids, that's a big number. So you definitely want to do a bunch of controls and a bunch of checks to filter out for the bullshit and give you and your children the best opportunity to marry up with a quality partner, as opposed to whoever just shows the fuck up. I understand that, especially financially, things can get desperate. And so, we're looking for a partner, somebody to come in and share with the bills and stuff like that. But I think that should be the last priority. I don't think that should be even an option. But, everybody has to live their life. Just do a good job. That's really the name of the game. Don't be a fucking troll and just let any stranger into your house, right? Stranger danger. There's a reason that holds true, even in adulthood. Next, and then you have the single parents, same thing. Parents that didn't want children to begin with. And so they end up with this kid from a stranger, maybe even. And what do? The kid just stands to suffer a lifetime of misery if the parent does not want to take responsibility. I've met people like this. They'll tell you I didn't want a kid, but they take care of their kids. They're taking them to baseball practice. They give them rides to school. They're still owning their responsibilities, and that's really important to do. And I imagine, and I'm positive that those people love their children even if they didn't want them. But you have the flip side. You have those parents that couldn't be interested at all in raising their kid. Matter of fact, sometimes they dislike their kid because of who they had them with. And that's fucking tragic. Again, it's not like, I'm not making any of this up. These are scenarios that I've encountered. That's how I develop these lists, is I think of my life and the different scenarios and the different type of malevolent behaviors I've observed. And, it just sticks out like a sore thumb in my head because, I see things and it's like, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Because I've explained before, in my development, in my early development, I saw more things that were wrong than right. And so that gave me a really good filter of the negative things that people were capable of, the danger and the hostility. And I was really lucky that I didn't fall victim to more types of severe predatory behaviors. Probably because I knew I wasn't to be trifled with. I was probably going to tell an adult. I was probably going to be vociferous about protecting myself, but not all kids are like that. Most kids are not like that. Matter of fact, to the contrary, they're not like that. And that's why, parents who don't give a fuck about their children or are willing to put them in dangerous scenarios, they're so shitty. It's so dangerous. And nobody should have to explain that to you. I think those are matters of the heart, right? Like you don't want to put your kids in danger. But you have single parents who don't give a fuck about their kids because they just didn't want them to begin with. Or you have single parents who have like 8 baby mama or 9 baby daddy, and what the fuck, it's a lot of chaos. And unless you have a thoroughly engaged parent to manage that chaos for the children, they only stand to suffer. So don't be a fucking troll single parent. And shout out, good job to all the single parents who try their best every day. I have a special place in my heart for you because, like I said, my mom raised us by herself, and here we are. Next on the list, foster parents. All right. This is a particularly devious bunch. Again, there are exceptions. There are definitely quality parents. As I was doing homework for this type of stuff, I did read stories where people would say, hey, I was raised in abusive foster homes, and then I encountered this one home and they sent me off to college or they coached me to go to college, and I got my degree. Well, do you know how rare that is? Only 3% of kids who live in a foster home will ever earn their college degree. 3%. And you could say, well, that's a big fucking deal, right? Well, of that, 25% of kids don't graduate high school. So you have, the odds are against you. You have a 75% chance of graduating high school even. And then after that, a 3% chance of earning a higher level degree. That is not fair. And I understand, again, something about being raised by a blood relative that is so important. Yeah, and we haven't got to that yet. We're going to get to that. Something about being raised by your blood that is so important. I think there's just something about it that is external to us, right? There's some sort of connection or some sort of environmental variable that avails itself when somebody that had us, we were born of them. When that energy avails itself to us, maybe it's warmer love or warmer hugs. I have no clue how that works. But that's to outline all the exclusions. Now let's talk about the whys. Why do these kids end up that way? So let's do the numbers, and then we'll talk about the whys. So 25% don't earn a high school diploma. 50% will abuse substances, drugs, alcohol, you name it. 70% of females will get pregnant before they're 21. So 70% of foster kids who are females will get pregnant before the age of 21. If you already have a hard life and you're more predisposed to substance abuse and you might not have an education, maybe you shouldn't be having kids. But I mean, that's exactly the result that happens when you're involved, a female involved in the foster care system. And then, of course, the last number was 3% will, only 3% will earn a degree. And as we can see, education is kind of the catalyst for higher earning pay. That's it. I mean, that's what it does for you. People have a thing right now, an aversion to the current state of the American higher education system, and for good reason. But nonetheless, if you can find the right institution and get credentialed in a particular thing, more typical than not, you probably want to choose something in the sciences because those tend to pay more money than the arts degrees. Even though some do earn money, I think they get a bad rap. There's a place for the arts, right? Psychology is an art. Anyway, you can definitely see how not being able to get an education can be impactful to the future earnings of a foster child. And I think that's tragic. I really wish we had a better system. I've witnessed the foster system as a kid, and I really don't remember a lot about it because I wasn't paying attention to that stuff. But as a grown up, you see foster parents, and you ask yourself, okay, fuck it, would I want that guy to be my parent? And I've never encountered a scenario where I say no, right? Because when I was in the military, it's typically a soldier, and they're a foster parent. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But there's a disconnect somewhere with all these numbers and the I guess the trajectory of a foster child to be successful in life is greatly diminished because they're part of the foster system. Probably has to do with stability and all that stuff. Well, let's talk about why some of the reasons what some of those reasons might be for the child's lack of success. And it's not the child's fault. In this scenario, I can never blame the child. Matter of fact, at 18 years old, once they reach the level of 18, what they call it, the age out of the foster system, meaning that they no longer have access to that system. They just kick them out. It's done. It's like turning 18 in your mom and dad's house, and they're saying, "Oh, time to go fucking pay rent somewhere else. Get out." That's kind of it. If you have, I guess, good foster parents, maybe they'll keep you, or maybe they give you a good path or good advice, and they're helping you to, get on your feet as you move out of the house. But more typically than not, that's not the case. It's a system. And what happens is these fucking foster parent trolls, okay, shout out to the good foster parents, but let's talk shit about the not good ones. They're the entrepreneur. That's a category I have for the foster parent troll who uses the children for the money. The state pays, like, as far as I know, I've heard, pays really well for you to foster a child. And so what happens is people start to use that as their sole source of income, which maybe there's nothing wrong with that technique either, as long as they're doing the job. But there's the type of parent who wants as many kids in the house as they can, so they can get that fucking paycheck, so they can buy the car and go do drugs and go to the fucking club and have all this fucking shit at the expense of the child. They're not concerned about their education. They're not concerned about their well-being. They're not concerned about their development. Matter of fact, they're probably okay with predatory behavior or the objectification of the child because they're just a commodity at that point. They're just a product. I'm making money off of this thing, and the human aspect is completely extracted and separated from the child. And what happens then? All bets are off. It's fucking tragic. I forget the name of the movie. I wish I could remember it, but it follows the life, a true story of this kid who was subjected to the foster system, and he ends up committing some sort of horrendous crime. But if they start to follow the line as to, well, how the fuck did this guy end up doing this? And he became a victim of the foster care system really early in his life. I forget if his mom died or his mom was a drug addict. I don't remember the complete scenario, but you can tell really quickly why these kids became that way. Because the entrepreneur fucking troll foster care. Matter of fact, it's worse than that. So this true story, because I looked it up when the movie was over, involved a company who was fostering kids with parents. And anytime that company got a child for placement, not only did the foster parent get a paycheck, but the corporation, again, corporations, fucking trolls, got a cut. They got a huge cut. Matter of fact, anytime, even for the same child, and that's what happened to this kid, the child didn't last in that environment. They pulled him out and put him somewhere else. They got another paycheck, right? So anytime I take a child, same child, doesn't matter if it's the same or different, I take him out and I put him in somewhere else, I get a paycheck. So they were incentivized to even move them around because they get, the corporation is going to make more money that way. And so what they ended up developing was, I don't know, 10, 20 people in the community who they could do that with. And they didn't vet the parents. And so all these kids were going into these abusive types of households. And of course, with other foster kids, and they were just getting horribly abused. I can't describe to you the abuse that this kid went through. And I mean, I challenge you to go find the movie. You could Google the shit and figure it out pretty quickly on your own if you want to watch it. But the entrepreneur foster care system, the entrepreneur, whether they're the corporation or company or entity that is managing the foster child on behalf of the state, or if it's the fucking troll ass entrepreneur foster parent, they're criminals. They're there to abuse the system so that they can enrich themselves at the detriment of a human life, literally children. And it's just fucking enraging to me. But the entrepreneur foster parent troll, yeah, I'm glad I don't see these people. I know who they are because I probably choke them out. Next are the foster parents, the abuser. So they get the child so that they have something to play with. Again, the objectification of the kid is the only motive, both financially and for predatory reasons. Whether it's so that they literally have a slave type of person in the house because now that person is doing all the work and they're driving them literally like a slave, working them to fucking death, or worse, they become the object of somebody's sexual gratification, which is fucking horrendous. And that's exactly what happens. The state is complicit in this because they don't have enough social workers, or the social workers who are in place, who maybe work for a corporation, turn the blind eye to the abuse because that's exactly what happened to that kid. It's not like they didn't know. That was the genesis of the movie, is that everybody knew that the abuse was taking place. They were placing foster kids who were known to be sexual predators themselves into households that had children who were potential victims of that sexual predator foster child. The fucking system was totally corrupt. I imagine it is still that way because we could just look at the numbers, just look at the results, and it tells you everything you need to know about that type of system. And so the abuser is a little bit. I mean, the entrepreneur is fucking disgusting. Fuck them. But the abuser is just a next level of degenerate. And if that's you, fucking get help. And if that's you, identify yourself so we can fucking stone you. Next, the sadist. So the sadist is the next level of fucking troll, which is even worse than the abuser, because a sadist has no moral compass, has no restrictions. There are no breaks. They will beat the fucking kid just because it brings them pleasure. They will sexually abuse a kid just because it brings them pleasure. They will lock the kid up in a dungeon because somehow that's entertaining to them or pleasurable, or whatever fucking type of rocks they get off of hurting a child. So the sadist troll, as far as foster parents are concerned, is the next level fucking troll, dude. I don't know where these people come from. I don't know how they ever get to get in proximity to children. I mean, I just assume that their behavior and their gosh darn it, um, their behavior and their conduct is just next level fucking bullshit. And I'm unsure how people get away with doing that type of stuff. How do those types of children get access? I mean, how do those types of adults get access to children? Obviously, it's the system. It's the vetting system. It's maybe a corporation, not always, but you can just imagine the government likes to outsource. That means contract. That means corporation. And of course, the corporation's interest is to make money, not necessarily care for the kid. It's not good. Next, foster parents. This is the last one, the last point I'll make about foster parents. I think we all understand the detrimental situation that these kids get into. The last one is the robot. So the robot takes the kid to school, it feeds the kid, but because it's not their child, they withhold the emotional support that the child needs to develop properly. They don't get an I love you. They may not get a hug, probably don't get a hug. All that type of human interaction that a child craves, that the child needs, is withheld. And if we all know, if a child doesn't get those types of things, that they grow up angry or whatever the fuck, there's no limit to the detrimental effects that, you know, the withholding of love to any individual, especially a child, has. Again, the robot, maybe they don't punch them in the face and they don't, you know, sexually abuse them, and maybe they're not there just to make a paycheck, but they don't understand the emotional requirement that it takes for a kid to develop properly, and therefore are very willing to just withhold any type of affection. That's just fucking sad. So that concludes today's presentation on the Troll series. So today we're on 8.0. We spoke about parents, single parents, and foster parents. I give credit to all the parents who try their best. You're still gonna have shortcomings. Just work on that shit. You're not gonna be perfect in this, man. Raising a kid is fucking hard. Raising more than one kid is even harder. So, you know, just try your best. You know, love will take you a long way. If you can think about the things that you needed in your life that maybe you grew up without, and you try to provide those for your children, I mean, that's a great place to start. I mean, that's really where I started. It's like, okay, what did I think I needed that I didn't get? And, you know, we tried to achieve that. Whether we got there or not, I don't know. We want to give our kids a better life than we had. And it doesn't mean, you know, a nicer car or a nicer house. It means a better moral compass, a better resiliency, a better way to deal with people and problems, knowing what right and wrong is, what right and wrong looks like, where to get help if, you know, you're in trouble, how to trust people, how to evaluate those dangerous situations, not trusting strangers. Like the list goes on and on as to how we can help our children improve their lives. It's imperative that we do our best to get educated. Grandparents are a wonderful resource. If you can get them involved in your children's life, they can also teach you what the do's and don'ts maybe, or they can give you a different perspective. I think the grandparent-parent relationship is a beautiful dance. And if you have a great grandparent, even better, because now you not only get a perspective of family values or your spirituality, but your culture. You can reach back in time in your culture because it comes along with that great grandparent. You know, I met my great-great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and of course, you know, my father. You know, all those people are gone now. And I really didn't have access to any of them ever, so that's kind of unfortunate. But I could imagine what it would have been like if my dad would have lived, and now if I would have had access to that family lineage of information, of knowledge. Remember, it's about the information that we put in our kids' heads. That's really the genesis of success for them. The information, the scenarios, how we treat them, it goes a long way. I belabored the point, and I'm glad I did. Be a good parent. Shout out to all the good parents, the single parents, and the foster parents. Keep up the good work. I hope you're getting the support you need. But don't be a troll. The kids are too important. We complain about the way society is going. That's fucking our fault. Because the kids, the ones that are coming up, we did that. So take credit, take ownership in your responsibility of how this world is turning out. It's up to us. I don't know if you could consider us, at what age you consider us the elders, the ones that take care of the tribe. But I imagine if you're, I don't know, maybe 40-ish, 42, you're kind of at the age where you can start having grandchildren. Maybe that's where you have a bigger responsibility, not just to your kids, but to everybody, to try to pass on the information as best you can, not making judgments, not being judgmental, but simply passing on the information and the knowledge, and helping your kids make better decisions, helping our young people steer their lives in a better trajectory, teaching them all those things that we need to know about strength, about resilience, about intelligence, about planning for the future, all those things. Have a great day.